The family dinner at La Maison Rouge was Dad's choice, his favorite five-star French restaurant where he loved showing off his status as chief of surgery. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over white tablecloths while waiters in tailored suits hovered nearby, ready to cater to his every whim. I adjusted my simple black blazer, feeling out of place among their designer outfits. Mom wore her signature Chanel suit, while my sister Evelyn preened in the latest Prada. Dad, as always, wore his custom-made Italian suit with his hospital department head pin prominently displayed. "So," Dad began, swirling his $500 Bordeaux, "still playing around with your little computer programs?" His tone dripped with the same condescension he used with first-year residents. I took a small sip of water. "Actually, I'm working on advanced healthcare systems integration." "Sophia," Mom interrupted, dabbing her lips with a silk napkin, "you had such potential in medical school. Top of your class at Harvard. You could have been a brilliant surgeon like your father. Instead," Evelyn chimed in, checking her reflection in a silver spoon, "you dropped out to play with computers. While I'm head of cardiology now." She shot me a smug smile. I felt my phone vibrate, another alert from my system monitoring the hospital's network. Something wasn't right, but I kept quiet. "A real doctor saves lives," Dad declared, cutting into his Wagyu beef. "Not whatever it is you do in your little apartment. I create systems that help doctors save lives," I replied calmly, watching another alert flash across my phone. The hospital's security protocols were showing concerning patterns. "Systems?" Dad scoffed. "The hospital has perfectly good software. We just spent $20 million upgrading everything last month." I knew all about that upgrade. I also knew its fatal flaws, ones I'd been trying to warn the hospital board about for weeks. They dismissed my reports just like Dad dismissed me. "That system has critical vulnerabilities." I started. "Enough." Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the crystal glasses jump. "I've been chief of surgery for 20 years. Don't presume to lecture me about hospital systems." Mom touched his arm soothingly. "Dear, remember your blood pressure." "I just worry about her future," Dad continued, his voice heavy with disappointment. 30 years old, no real career, playing with computers in a tiny apartment. My phone buzzed again. 3 rapid alerts. The hospital system was showing critical signs of failure. "At least move back home," Mom pleaded. "We barely see you anymore in that awful downtown apartment." What they didn't know was that I owned the entire building, and 5 others in the city's tech corridor. My tiny apartment was actually the penthouse. Speaking of real careers, Evelyn smiled wickedly. "Guess who just got nominated for department head?" She flourished an envelope. "The board votes next week." Dad beamed. "That's my girl. Following in my footsteps. Unlike some people who waste their potential." Another alert. The hospital's security walls were crumbling. "Dad," I said quietly, "about the hospital system." I said enough. His voice carried across the restaurant. "If you want to waste your life, fine. But don't try to tell me how to run my hospital." My phone lit up with an urgent message from my development team. "Critical failure, imminent, ransomware detected, emergency protocols needed." I stood up slowly, gathering my laptop bag. "You might want to keep your phone on tonight." "Leaving already?" Mom sighed. "We barely touched our main course." "Probably can't afford it anyway," Evelyn snickered. Dad didn't even look up from his plate. "If you ever decide to get a real job, the hospital always needs IT support staff. Entry level, of course." I smiled slightly, knowing what was coming. My team had detected the ransomware attack in time, but the hospital's outdated systems were defenseless. Only my emergency protocols could stop it. Protocols the board had rejected as unnecessarily expensive. "I'll keep that in mind," I said, heading for the door. Behind me, I heard Dad's phone start ringing, the first of many calls he'd received tonight. The maitre d' helped me with my coat. "Your usual car, Ms. Mitchell?" "Yes, Thomas. And please add their bill to my account." As I stepped outside, my phone lit up with the emergency alert I'd been expecting. "All hospital systems down, critical failure, emergency response needed." I smiled, opening my laptop as I slid into my waiting car. Dad was about to learn exactly what his little girl playing with computers really did. "To the office," I told my driver. "Looks like it's going to be a long night." Behind me, through the restaurant's windows, I could see Dad's face turning pale as he stared at his phone. The hospital's entire system was crashing, and only its creator could save it. Dad's phone rang again, the fifth call in 3 minutes. His face had lost all color as he stared at the screen showing the hospital's emergency alerts. "This is impossible," he muttered, fingers trembling as he tried to answer. "The entire system, everything's down." The restaurant's TV suddenly switched to breaking news. "Breaking. Major hospital network suffers catastrophic system failure. Emergency protocols activated." "Daddy." Evelyn's voice shook. "My department. All our patient records." "It's fine," Dad snapped, but sweat beaded on his forehead. "The backup systems are compromised," I finished, reopening my laptop. "Along with everything else." The maitre d' approached our table urgently. "Dr. Mitchell, there's an emergency call for you in the private room." Dad stood up, straightening his jacket with shaking hands. "Excuse me, I need to Actually," I interrupted, "they're asking for me." Mom's fork clattered against fine china. But why would they Before she could finish, the restaurant screens filled with a video call. The hospital board chairman's face appeared, panic evident in his expression. "Ms. Mitchell. Thank God we've reached you. The entire network is down. Nothing's working, patient records, medication systems, security protocols, everything." Dad froze halfway out of his chair. "Charles, what are you doing calling my daughter?" "I'm chief of surgery, I should James," the chairman cut him off. "Your daughter is the only one who can help us. She's the original architect of MediSecure." "MediSecure?" Evelyn whispered. "But that's the leading healthcare security system in the country. Every major hospital uses it. Including ours," I said quietly, typing commands into my laptop. "The system you just spent $20 million to upgrade? It's a cheap knockoff. One I warned the board about repeatedly." "Impossible," Dad breathed. "You just make simple programs." Another screen lit up. My company's logo appeared: Quantum Medical Systems. Below it scrolled recent headlines. Quantum Medical Systems valued at $4.2 billion. MediSecure protects 80% of U.S. hospitals. Sophia Mitchell named Forbes 30 under 30 in healthcare tech. Mom's champagne glass slipped from her fingers. "You're that Sophia Mitchell? The one who tried to sell us her overpriced security system last month?" The chairman's voice was heavy with regret. "Yes, she is. But..." Dad collapsed back into his chair. "You live in that small apartment. You never..." "I own the building, Dad. Along with most of the tech corridor downtown. I pulled up the hospital's system architecture. I tried telling you about the vulnerabilities. The board insisted their cheaper option was just as good." Evelyn's department head nomination letter crumpled in her trembling hands. "All those times you tried to warn us about the system." "Ms. Mitchell," the chairman interrupted, "the ransomware is spreading. We have minutes before we lose everything. Please." I nodded, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Implementing emergency protocols now. Quantum Team Alpha, begin isolation procedures." Suddenly, every screen in the restaurant lit up with streaming code as my team began their work. Dad watched, mouth agape, as years of dismissing my computer games crumbled before him. "By God," he whispered. "All this time." "The system's stabilizing," I announced, watching the security protocols engage. "Quantum's emergency backup servers are online. Patient data secured." The chairman's relief was palpable. "Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. The board will approve whatever contract you recommend immediately. I'll have it sent over within the hour. Standard rate is $50 million for emergency intervention, plus annual licensing fees." I closed my laptop. "And Dad?" He looked up, still stunned. "About that IT support position. I don't think I'll need it." Mom's hands shook as she reached for her water. "Sophia, darling, we never knew." "That's right," I said, standing up. "You never asked." Too busy planning Evelyn's perfect medical career to notice I was building an empire. "The board meeting next week," Evelyn said weakly. "For department head. Will be interesting," I finished. Considering Quantum Medical Systems just became the hospital's primary security contractor. All departmental appointments will need my approval. Dad's phone buzzed again. The chairman's message appeared on screen. Emergency board meeting tomorrow, quantum medical systems acquisition of hospital network to be discussed. You're buying the hospital? Dad's voice cracked. No, Dad. I gathered my things. I already own controlling interest. Tomorrow just makes it official. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Evelyn. About that department head position. She looked up, face pale. Maybe spend less time polishing your nomination letter and more time learning about modern medical security protocols. The board will expect that from now on. As I walked away, I heard Mom whisper, James, our daughter is a billionaire. And your boss, I called back without turning around. Emergency board meetings at 9 a.m. Don't be late. The maitre d' held the door. Behind me, I could hear Dad's phone continuing to buzz with emergency alerts. Alerts that only his daughter who plays with computers could resolve. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital board meeting exactly 5 minutes early, dressed in a tailored Armani suit that cost more than Dad's monthly salary. The boardroom buzzed with nervous energy as directors shuffled papers and whispered among themselves. Dad and Evelyn sat near the end of the table, both looking like they hadn't slept. Mom had insisted on attending too, perched uncertainly in a visitor's chair against the wall. The Cartier watch she always bragged about suddenly looked modest compared to my subtle Patek Philippe. Good morning, I said, taking my place at the head of the table. Let's begin. The chairman stood, clearing his throat. After last night's crisis, we're here to formalize quantum medical systems acquisition of controlling interest in the hospital network, and to review Ms. Mitchell's security recommendations. Controlling interest? One of the older board members frowned. But how did Dash? I've been buying shares through various subsidiaries for the past year, I explained, sliding documents across the polished table. As of this morning, Quantum owns 51% of the network. Dad's hands trembled as he picked up the papers. His signature was on many of them, approvals he'd given without realizing who was really behind the purchases. The same daughter you said was wasting her potential, the chairman added, making Dad flinch. Has been secretly protecting this hospital from catastrophic failure for months, even without a contract. I opened my laptop, projecting last night's attack data onto the wall screen. The ransomware attack was sophisticated but predictable. I warned this board 3 times about the vulnerabilities. Evelyn stared at the complex security protocols scrolling past, protocols I'd developed while she was mocking my computer games. The cost of implementing proper security would have been $30 million, I continued. Instead, you chose a $20 million substandard system. Last night's emergency response cost you $50 million, plus another $100 million in upcoming required upgrades. Mom gasped at the numbers. She'd always bragged about Dad's surgeon salary, never knowing her youngest daughter could buy and sell the entire hospital with pocket change. Which brings us to operational changes, I said, pulling up a new document. First, all department head appointments will require security compliance verification. Evelyn's nomination letter crumpled in her lap. Second, Dr. Mitchell, I turned to Dad, keeping my voice professional. Your position as Chief of Surgery will now report directly to Quantum's Medical Advisory Board. You're my boss. Dad whispered. Actually, I smiled slightly, you'll be reporting to Dr. Sarachan, our Chief Medical Officer. I believe you dismissed her research proposal last year as inexperienced theoretical nonsense. The blood drained from his face. He remembered. Finally, I continued, the hospital will be implementing a complete digital transformation. All staff will undergo mandatory technical training. But our methods work fine, Evelyn protested weakly. Last night proved otherwise, the chairman interjected. Ms. Mitchell's systems are the industry standard. We're lucky she was willing to save us at all. I closed my laptop. The contracts are ready for signing. I trust there are no objections. The board members practically tripped over themselves to approve. One by one they signed until only Dad was left. His hand shook as he held the pen. Sophia, It's Ms. Mitchell in the boardroom, Dr. Mitchell, I corrected gently. Personal relationships don't affect professional decisions. You taught me that, remember? He signed, looking decades older than he had at dinner last night. Excellent. I gathered the contracts. The emergency protocols will remain in place until the full upgrade is complete. My team will oversee everything. As the board members filed out, Mom approached hesitantly. Darling, about all those times we save it, I said quietly. Years of dismissing my work, my choices, my life. That doesn't disappear with one crisis. We were wrong, Dad admitted, his voice breaking. So terribly wrong. Yes, you were. I stood straightening my suit. But the past is done. What matters now is the future, and whether you're ready to accept that your little girl playing with computers is now your boss. Evelyn stepped forward. The department head position. Reapply in 6 months, I said. After you've completed the technical training. Success here requires more than just the Mitchell name now. They watched in silence as I gathered my things. The daughter they'd dismissed for years was now the most powerful person in the hospital. Oh, and Dad. I paused at the door. Family dinner next week is at my penthouse. The real one, not the small apartment you assumed I lived in. We have a lot to discuss about the hospital's future. As I walked out, Mom whispered, James, what have we done? I didn't turn back. Family drama was over. I had a hospital to run, lives to save, and a legacy to build. My phone buzzed. Another hospital wanted quantum system. I smiled and stepped into my car. 6 months later, I stood in my penthouse office, overlooking the city. Our hospital had transformed. The new system was called Revolutionary, and other networks begged to join. Dad surprised me. After the shock, he learned the tech. Last week, he did the first AI-assisted surgery with my system. Evelyn struggled at first, but she dropped her pride. Now she led a program blending heart care with AI diagnostics. Mom still found it hard. At dinner, she almost bragged about Evelyn's old job, then stopped, remembering who ran the hospital now. Ms. Mitchell, my assistant said. The Thomson Mayo Group is here for merger talks. Send them in, I replied, straightening my suit. I glanced at the framed article, Quantum valued at $12 billion. Below it, a photo from the night our hospital nearly collapsed. A reminder of how far we'd come. My phone buzzed. Dad, emergency loves the new system. Proud of you. Then Evelyn, AI caught a defect we almost missed. You were right. Don't tell Mom. Waking face. I laughed. The family that once mocked my computer games, now trusted my tech to save lives. The Thomson Mayo executives entered, nervous. They knew better than to underestimate me. Gentlemen, I said, taking my seat. Let's talk about the future of healthcare. Through the windows, Dad's hospital, now my hospital, stood tall. Strong, safe, secure. Success often starts with people saying you'll fail. My doubters had driven me to build an empire. Shall we begin? I asked, opening my laptop. The future of healthcare was waiting. More hospitals to transform. More lives to save. Just another day for the girl who refused to get a real job.